This month in our worship, we're focusing on gratitude, just what it means to be thankful, what it means to generate and cultivate a spirit of thankfulness in all areas of our lives. Now, last week we shared our gratitude for the people who have gone before us, for those who formed us, for those who influenced us and shaped our beliefs and our habits, even our personalities, and those that we continue to carry in our hearts and our memories. So today we're going to share our gratitude for those relationships that are ongoing. Some may be distant, some may be a little too close, but all of them are worthy of gratitude. And gratitude strengthens those relationships, and gratitude also strengthens our bodies. Robert Emmons is a professor of psychology at the University of California and has studied thousands of people over the years from age 8 to 80. They've found in their studies that people who practice gratitude consistently report a host of personal benefits. Physically, people who practice being grateful have a stronger immune system, have lower blood pressure, exercise more, tend to take care of themselves and their health. They sleep better and maybe are a little bit more refreshed waking up. Thankful people have a higher level of positive emotions. They tend to be more alert and experience more joy in life, a greater sense of happiness. And those who practice gratitude prove to be even more generous and more compassionate, more forgiving, and often more outgoing, and definitely less lonely and isolated than those who don't. Now, gratitude is not just good medicine. It's not just a warm, fuzzy feeling, and it's not even really a strategy for being happy and healthier. It is the truest aspect and approach to life, because we didn't create ourselves, and we haven't gotten to where we are in life, wherever that is, by ourselves. So living in gratitude is living in truth. It's the most accurate and honest approach to life. And this is a message that we find over and over again in our scriptures, and certainly today. Reading from the letter of the Apostle Paul to the church in Philippi, we find Paul overwhelmed with joy while he sits in prison, because he remembers and he ruminates on these memories of the friendships that he has experienced and those he has maintained through the years in spite of the differences of distance and adversities in life. He reflects on that and then he writes, "I thank my God every time I remember you, constantly praying with joy in every one of my prayers for you. And it's right for me to think this way about you because you hold me in your heart, and all of you share in God's grace together with me. It's my prayer that your love might overflow more and more to help you determine what is best for you." A beautiful prayer of care for one another. And these words are written from a prison cell. But instead of dwelling on his immediate discomfort or his fear of what might happen next, Paul focuses his thoughts on who he is thankful for in his life. He identifies his greatest source of gratitude in these friendships that he has, these close relationships that he's found and that he's nurtured through the years. Scripture invites us to practice gratitude. Now, Robert Emmons helps us again to define what we mean by practicing gratitude. First, it's an affirmation of goodness in life. We affirm that there are good things in this world. There are gifts and there's benefits that we have received and continue to receive. And that doesn't mean that our lives are perfect, and it doesn't mean ignoring our burdens and our struggles and the difficulties of life. But when we look at our lives as a whole, gratitude encourages us to identify with the amount of goodness that is in our life that we often can forget when we get overwhelmed by the struggles. Now, the second part of gratitude is recognizing the source of this goodness that is outside of ourselves. Doesn't stem from something we've done, not something that we can take pride in. So we need to appreciate the positive traits in ourselves, grateful for what we have in who we are, but we need to recognize our dependence on others. We are never totally independent. We are always interdependent. So gratitude is actually a social emotion. It's a relationship strengthening emotion. It requires us to see how we've been supported and affirmed by others. It helps us to acknowledge God and the many other people who have given us gifts, big and small, those that have helped us to achieve what is good in our lives. So knowing how important and transformative thankfulness can be, how do we engender and grow in gratitude for others? I think one way we can begin is by listening to one another. The quality of our listening can make a profound difference in our relationships. For listening itself is a spiritual practice. It's a holy act. When two people listen deeply to one another, we sense that we are present not only to each other, but to something beyond our individual selves. There is something spiritual and holy and sacred in truly listening to one another. As Quaker author Douglas Steere puts it, to listen another soul into a place of disclosure and discovery may be the greatest service that any human can perform for another. Can you remember a time when someone was fully listening to you and you knew it, something that you can feel, and it meets a deep human need that maybe we don't realize we need and have until someone truly listens to us? And Martin Buber puts it this way: when two people relate to each other authentically and humanly, God is the electricity that surges between them. We know we are in the presence of God when we are in a loving relationship. And that sounds wonderful, but it's not as easy as it sounds. You might know that, and we know that we tend to spend about 80% of our waking hours communicating in some way, like writing and reading or speaking and listening to people and listening to music and listening to TV or listening to podcasts and the YouTube. But the reality is that most of that time we are preoccupied. We're trying to multitask. We're not truly paying attention. The average attention span, even for adults, at least in the United States, is like 30 seconds. You may know when you're trying to read something, like you have to keep bringing your mind back because we are so used to looking around for what's next or remembering something else. And this constant change of focus makes it more difficult to listen significantly for any length of time. And often after we hear someone speak, we're having a hard time remembering what they said. We tend to be thinking about what we're going to say next, and we miss half of what they said. But we don't think about developing this skill of listening. Becoming a listening presence is a form of gratitude. It's offering a space where change can take place, where there's freedom to just be. It's being fully present with another. And when hearts listen, friendships begin. Being a non-anxious presence, listening in a way that calms the other and connects. This practice of listening involves focusing on the moment rather than worrying about what it is I'm going to say next. Really, really listening to one another requires our full attention. It calls for a mindset of curiosity, of wonder, of appreciation. Appreciation for the unique value of this particular person. Andre Herrera Gray invites us to build our relationships with a beginner's mind, a term that comes from the Buddhist tradition, but children can teach us a lot about the beginner's mind. They see the world with fresh eyes, with wonder and excitement. Having an open mind allows us to learn new things, and this is something we need in our relationships, because our relationships can grow from having that open mind. Because if we assume that we already know those that we're in relationships with, we tend to limit our view of them. And the reality is we don't fully know them. There's always mystery. Mystery in our lives, mystery in our relationships. And this practice can expand our relationships because we let go of our expectation for others and for ourselves. We can begin to see them as they really are, rather than how we wish they would be or how we think they should be, according to whatever standard that we have in our head. Being an active listener is going to take practice. We can't really listen if we're thinking about all the other things that are going on in our day, or how we're going to respond, or how we should fix their problem. It takes practice to let go of our own agendas and just be present with one another. And as we do this, we grow in gratitude for these relationships as we allow ourselves to be in the mystery of who are these people in my life. Now, another very practical way that we can begin to practice gratitude in our relationships and in our lives, is to keep some kind of a journal, to write it down. Write down the things you're grateful for, write down the people that you're grateful for, include the sources of whatever good things are in your life. It can become a daily practice, a discipline where you consciously, deliberately choose to focus on all the things that are working in your life, whether they're just ordinary or the extraordinary things that happen. I mean, I have found that focusing on the parts of my body that are working on any particular given day helps me be more patient with the parts that aren't so working so well anymore. And I think that works with people too. When we focus on their good traits, the ways that they try to be helpful, the way that they try to be caring, we become more patient with the characteristics or the actions of theirs that we struggle with. So being specific and writing down who you're grateful for and why really helps to cement those feelings of gratitude. These are the things that begin to also produce those health benefits for you. And you can look back on this record that you begin to build of gratitude. And remember, maybe when you're having a really bad day, you go back and you see that list of all the things that you have to be grateful for. Focusing on the benevolence of others for you makes you feel more nourished by a supportive network that is there for you. A grateful response to life keeps these cherished relationships and all the kindnesses of others alive longer. We're less likely to take them for granted when we take the time to focus on them. And finally, we can practice a practice of gratitude by expressing that gratitude. And in our scriptures, Paul is doing just that. He's sharing his gratitude for his friends with them in this letter, which is the only way that he can, making sure that they know that he is thankful for them, and he remembers them, and he thinks of them and prays for them, and finds joy in their presence in his life. So saying thanks to your friends, well, it might make them happier, very likely too. It strengthens your bond together. Even thanking the person who makes your coffee will strengthen the social bonds in your life. For gratitude deepens our understanding of how we are always interconnected with other people. Now, while reading our Braiding Sweetgrass book this week, I was reminded that we have relationships which we are grateful for that reach beyond the people that we know. So next week, we're going to be looking into the indigenous wisdom of gratitude as we together share in our national annual celebration of Thanksgiving. But now, let us sing praise to God and thankfulness for our lives.